The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said that the only constant in life is change, alluding to the fact that things often adapt and evolve, where nothing stays the same forever. Now, I've got nothing against Heraclitus, but I do have a counterpoint. See, for years I've opened up Mario Kart 8 Deluxe just to get hit with the same title screen over and over again. At some point, this title screen had become the second constant in my life, or at least it would have had I not accidentally stumbled across this. I'm sure everyone that's played 8 Deluxe would instantly recognize the original title screen, but how many would recognize this one? Or even this one? These alternative title screens are unlocked by earning a gold trophy in every base game mirror cup as well as the 200cc base game cups. But as majestic as these alternative title screens are, there was but one thought that crossed my mind when looking through them. Just how good are the kart combinations displayed on them? Now, how exactly are we going to figure out which combo is the best? With so many different vehicle parts and reoccurring characters to account for, it can be a real struggle organizing them into a comprehensive spreadsheet. Fortunately for you guys, you won't have to suffer like I did, thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Odoo. Do you hate organizing complex projects? Or maybe you're tired of switching between a million different programs just to get humbled? If you said yes to either of these statements, then you'll love Odoo Project, an app designed to make organizing and planning projects a complete cakewalk. Using Odoo Project, I could analyze and test as many kart combinations as I'd like. I could assign each combination as a task within Odoo's Kanban view, and upon completing it, I'd simply move it across the pipeline, updating it in real time. I could then switch on over to the Gantt view, where I'd check up on the progress of each combination before using the list view to make large batch changes on the go. Now, if you do have more complex projects than, say, comparing silly little kart combinations, you can set milestones and even organize activities like meetings, calls, and to-do lists with other team members within each task. Odoo Project is also fully integrated with every other app offered by Odoo, meaning certain aspects can be fully automated. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely a program like this costs a fortune. Well, what if I told you that you could use Odoo Project for the rest of your life for free? That's because your first application comes with unlimited support and hosting. Well, what are you waiting for? The link is right down below. Now then, we can move this over to the completed section and start ranking some kart combinations. Thanks again to Odoo for sponsoring this video. Now then, we could theoretically figure it out by looking at stat totals for each combination, but where's the fun in that? Instead, I decided to race through each base game cup once at 200cc with every single combination. While doing so, I noted down my placement in each race, and using them we'll get an average placement score, which we will then use to rank every single title screen kart combination from worst to best. With that being said, why don't we start with the main man himself, Luigi. Now, I say Luigi, but really it's the kart that's important here. See, this particular title screen might feature Luigi in the Mark 8 body with slim tires, but what about this title screen? Or even this one? I'm sure you've noticed the similarities. The characters may differ from screen to screen, but the kart body and tires remain the exact same. Now, unfortunately for me, the characters in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are divided into small groups, with each one having a different set of statistics. This meant that I had to race through every cup with each character regardless of whether they shared the exact same kart or not, as it would technically count as a separate kart combination based on their stats. Now, in the interest of time, I'll only be discussing the best character slash kart combination in most of these cases, although I will still compare the overall averages between them all so we can get a more precise rating at the end. So, out of Yoshi, Luigi, and Mario, who do you think performed the best across the board? If you said Mario, I'm going to need you to click off the video right now. Look, I know it's called Mario Kart, but this guy constantly disappoints me when it comes to his driving ability. No, the best combination in this case was Yoshi in the Mark 8 with the slim tires. As you can imagine, this combo has no problems drifting around the wider tracks like Mario Circuit and Cheep Beach. It's also surprisingly fast, to the point where you can literally outrun blue shells as you glide to an easy first place finish. Where this combo begins to falter though, is in its handling capabilities. See, while it performs well on tracks with long straights and wide winding turns, it's not the best when it comes to tracks with sharp turns or narrow roads. The Mark 8 in general has fairly mediocre handling stats. And while the slim tires do well to counteract these shortcomings, the lack of acceleration across the board means that should you get hit, it's a pretty rough time getting back up to speed. This was even more prominent with Luigi, who has an even lower acceleration stat than Yoshi. Overall though, this was a surprisingly good combination. It offered good speed, decent mini turbos, and while the acceleration and traction left much to be desired, it still performed well with me averaging a placement of 1.31 across the 48 races. My average placements with Luigi and Mario weren't too different, but it was clear that Yoshi was the best with a superior acceleration and mini turbos. Now I can only hope that the next combo performs as well as this one did. I think we all know where this one's going.
What the hell is even that?
If you haven't caught on yet, this combo involves the standard ATV, one of the worst vehicles in the entire game. It's widely agreed upon that the most important stats in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are the mini turbos, the speed, and to a lesser degree the acceleration. While the ATV has decent ground speed, it lacks in pretty much everything else. It's got fuck all acceleration, its mini turbos are the worst out of any vehicle, and its handling is downright atrocious. This is made even worse somehow because it's paired with the monster tires, which also suffer from a lack of acceleration and mini turbos. The resulting product is a piece of junk that almost had me scrolling through Amazon for a new controller. Now, don't get me wrong, you can make this combo work if you've got the patience for it. It performs decently well on the simpler tracks like Mario Kart Stadium, as you're able to abuse a lot of the speed on the long straights offered. Outside of the mushroom, flower, and shell cup though, I don't recommend anyone using this combo. Its non-existent acceleration stat really bared its fangs during this test. If I got hit at the end of lap 3, it was almost always an immediate death sentence. By the time this bad boy gets up to speed again, you could have started and finished a whole ass cup with a better combo. I'm not even fucking joking. Now that I think about it, this combo's one claim to fame, which is its high speed stat, isn't even that good when you consider this game's focus on anti-gravity. It may have the high speed on the ground, but its anti-gravity speed is average at best, meaning for a large majority of the tracks, you've got no real advantages. What I will say is you can get away with tricking off certain jumps that you'd usually avoid tricking off purely because this combo's mini turbo stat is just so arse that you won't go slamming straight into a wall afterwards. The immense weight of the vehicle also allows you to bulldoze your way straight through piranha plants, but unfortunately this strategy didn't seem to work on the chain chomps. Now you may have noticed that I haven't mentioned the specific characters that use this combo, and that's because they all fucking suck. Most of them belong to the large category, meaning they have high speed, no acceleration, and terrible mini turbos. So it's kind of just like if you turn the standard ATV into a character. If I were to recommend one, however, it would be Toad, because at least he covers for some of the vehicle's weaknesses, mainly due to his superior acceleration and mini turbos. Now despite me saying that, I got my best average placement with Morton of all characters, which just goes to show you that, actually I don't know what this shows us. It's just an interesting outcome, I guess. Now, Morton may have been the best combo in this case, but it was by far one of the worst out of the whole bunch, with an average placement of 1.68. I'd vouch that there's only one other title screen combo that could outperform this one in terms of shitness, and it's not going to be this next one. We've arrived at the first unique combination, and by unique I mean there's only one character paired with it, that being Link on the Master Cycle. Now as someone who's usually complete dogshit with inward drifting bikes, I was honestly surprised at how well I fared with this combo. On paper, it doesn't look all that great, especially considering how similar it is to the heavy ATV combo we just covered. It features remarkably high speed with questionable handling and acceleration. The Triforce tires do most of the heavy lifting here, as they somewhat make up for the lack of traction and acceleration in the body and Link himself. The biggest reason as to why this combo is somewhat effective though has to do with the fact that it's an inward drifting bike. See, based on stats alone, these bikes have some terrible handling, yet they manage to cut around some of the sharpest turns in the entire game without sacrificing too much speed. This is even more effective when brake drifting, and I found myself soaring through some of the toughest tracks even on 200cc. Its high speed helps maintain leads while on long straights, and its tight turn angles make drifting around the sharper corners a breeze. I'd say its only real drawback would be its weaker mini turbos, which can hurt in a lot of the ladder tracks as they often contain a lot of small turns one after another. That being said, this was the first combo that made me feel confident enough to trick off the Blue Ribbon Road in Ribbon Road. Things don't usually go too well when I try that with other combos. You also have to consider that even the best combo can't save you from getting Mario Karted sometimes.
What is this timing?
Oh my... Now even with that bullshit finish, I managed to secure an average placement of 1.3 over the 48 races, making this the best kart combination so far, an accolade that wouldn't last for much longer. This here was the first combination where I had absolutely no idea how it would play out. I have never used the splat buggy, and I can count on one hand the amount of times I've played as Inkling in this game, so you can imagine the look on my face when I realized just how smooth it all ran. Now as much as I avoid them, I have to admit that Inkling is an incredibly solid character. They have decent speed, good mini turbos, and the acceleration isn't anything to joke about either. This praise extends to the splat buggy as well. Out of all the karts with a 4 speed stat, it has the best acceleration, the best mini turbos, and even has a solid traction stat, which certainly helps when you're zooming around at light speeds. The only subpar aspect would be its handling, but because it's paired with these slim wheels, even this stat becomes pretty solid all around. On top of all of this, its slimmer frame makes avoiding obstacles like the trucks on Moonview Highway especially easy. Its sharper drift angles also shine through on tracks like near Bowser City. These winding turns here are my kryptonite. Whether it was the Mark 8 or the ATV, I always seem to drift off the edges here. But for the first time in this entire challenge, I was able to drift through these turns without too much trouble. As usual, Rainbow Road proved to be a bit more of a struggle, but even with a few mistakes here and there, the combo's high acceleration means there's always a good chance of you taking back the lead. This combo in particular was the closest I had felt to playing a quote-unquote meta combo. Its solid speed and mini turbos kept it from falling behind, and any kart that's able to drift around Yoshi's winding plates with relative ease gets a thumbs up in my book. At the end of its 48 races, Inkling had managed to get an average placement of 1.23 in its splat buggy, making them the most proficient and effective combo so far. But again, this wouldn't last for long. Now as plain and boring as the standard bike is, you have to admit that it's a pretty solid vehicle. It shares the same stats as the Wild Wiggler while also being extremely similar to the Teddy Buggy as well. Its high acceleration and strong mini turbos pair extremely well with Peach, who's among the strongest characters in the entire game. There are a good few characters who share this vehicle combo, but outside of maybe Luigi, the others just can't compete in terms of raw stats with Peach. The slim tires do somewhat drag this combo down, but their higher speed stat does help account for the slower speeds of the bike itself. As you'd expect, this combo has very few pitfalls, being able to make most turns, albeit with some brake drifting slipped in. Its high acceleration means you can afford to take a beating and still have a high chance of catching up quickly. In all honesty, the majority of these races were smooth sailing, and at no point did it feel like I lost control of the vehicle. This was even more surprising considering I never really used the standard bike. Based on that alone, I'd go as far as to say that this combo was the dark horse of the entire experience, and this feeling only became further pronounced as my average placement came out to be 1.13, the best by a significant margin. But in reality, this combo never stood a chance, especially compared to this next one. We've arrived at the combination that I had the utmost faith in before even starting this experiment. The Bitty Buggy, in my opinion, is one of the best vehicles in the entire game. It may not impress you with its speed, but it's got the highest acceleration in the entire game, as well as having the strongest mini turbos. Now unfortunately, the Bitty Buggy is paired with some less than ideal characters. Baby Mario and Luigi are slightly better than Baby Rosalina in this case because they have slightly higher speed without sacrificing any of its mini turbo stats. But even then, this combo could be a lot better. Thankfully, there's one more character that's rocking the Bitty Buggy, and this guy completes what I consider to be the closest we'll get to a meta combo. I'm of course talking about Iggy, who possesses high speed, again without sacrificing too much in terms of his mini turbos. His acceleration might not be that great, but everything Iggy lacks is made up for by the Bitty Buggy and vice versa. This results in a combo that's close to Yoshi/Peach in Mr. Scooty, and as you'd expect, it performed significantly better than every other combo so far. Now, you can call this a skill issue, but this combo was the first one where I managed to get a perfect 3 stars on the Bell Cup in 200cc. I'll admit, I'm just completely arse at this cup. If I don't get fucked up on Neo Bowser City, which I do regularly, I usually get decimated on Ribbon Road. And if the stars align and I've somehow managed to get first place in both of these tracks, then I'd always get shat on at the end of Big Blue. But that didn't happen this time around. Even if I did almost sell at multiple stages, I was always so far ahead that it didn't matter how many blue shells were thrown my way. This combo continued to perform well in all of the hardest cups, as I was able to pick up another perfect run in the Special Cup, which was followed shortly by another in the Lightning Cup. In fact, this was the first kart combination to get a perfect placement throughout every single cup, cementing itself at the top as the strongest kart combination discussed so far. And given its perfect run, I'm not sure there's any combo left that could topple its crown. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't any combos left which could match the Bitty Buggy. I mean, I'm sure there's got to be at least one. Look, I get what Nintendo was going for when they named this thing the Badwagon, but I just can't help but find it ironic that the vehicle itself seems self-aware in the fact that it just sucks ass. Most of the pitfalls associated with this combo line up with those of the standard ATV combos. I mean, no shit, it's part of the same group. So of course it's going to have shitty acceleration, god-awful mini turbos, and less than ideal handling. That being said, there is one slight difference between the two combos, and that difference is in the tires. See, while the ATV combos rock the monster tires, the Badwagon can be seen using the standard tires. Now, while I do believe these are a solid improvement over the monster tires, mainly due to their superior acceleration, they're by no means a game changer, especially when you realize that the only two characters seen in this vehicle are Bowser and Roy, some of the heaviest characters in the entire game. The resulting combo just comes off as a clunky mess that has all the same problems that the standard ATV had. It feels like you need to brake drift to make it around any corner, and even if you do get into a nice rhythm, the strength of your mini turbos, it kind of just feels like, how should I explain this? You know when you're like, you feel like you've got a big fart coming out, but instead it's kind of like just this little poof? What the fuck am I saying? Anyway, any time that I got hit while on the final lap pretty much just made my heart sink with this comment because I just knew I was cooked. Now, unlike the Bitty Buggy, we've only got two characters to choose from here. Now, on paper I'd assume Roy was the better character, mainly due to him having one more acceleration and mini turbo stat over Bowser, but honestly I could not tell you in good faith whether or not there was a significant difference between them. As I've said with the ATV combos, I'd only recommend using this combo for some of the earlier cups. It performs well on tracks like Mario Circuit that have wide turns and long straight sections, but then again, what combo doesn't perform well on these tracks? That's really the main problem here. Even the supposed strengths of this kart fall short when compared to practically any other kart combination, which is a shame. Unfortunately, the Badwagon combo is, well, bad, with an average placement of 1.48. I guess at least it's managed to live up to its own name. That being said, we're on to the last title screen combo. I guess the only question that remains is, can it take the top spot? Now, as is common practice, I've saved the best for last. And not only is it the best, but it's also the most common. I'm of course talking about the signature standard kart, which is somehow my most used body. That can't be a good sign. This kart body is featured alongside 5 different characters who are all relatively competitive. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Mario's going to have to take a back seat once again for this one. The other 4 are a bit harder to separate, mainly due to the fact that they all share the same mini turbo stats. What differentiates them is their speed and acceleration, with the faster ones having lower acceleration and vice versa. During the actual races, I tended to prefer Larry over the rest, and I can't really explain why. Maybe it's the extra traction that he provides, but he didn't seem to struggle too much on the usual torture chambers. I'm looking at you, near Bowser City. The kart itself is relatively fast, and while its mini turbos aren't amazing, I think it's perfectly serviceable, especially considering it's also paired with the standard tires. Honestly, for a combo that's supposed to be the shining definition of the word mid, I think it's rather efficient. Now, are you going to be setting new world records and time trials with it? I mean, if your skills are as good as mine, then yeah, probably.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
In all seriousness though, I'm not sure what else I can add here. It's a completely valid combination that doesn't suffer from too many flaws, which was reflected in its average placement of 1.19. This brings us to the end of this little experiment, meaning the only thing left to do is to rank them according to how well they performed across every base game cup. To no one's surprise, I hope, the worst kart combination displayed on any given title screen are the ones that involve the standard ATV. See, when it comes to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, there's just certain statistics that rise above the rest in terms of importance, and unfortunately, the standard ATV essentially misses on all of them. The same could be said about the Badwagon, and while it was the second to worst combination, it still managed to outperform the standard ATV, mainly based on the improvements to acceleration and mini turbos offered by the standard tires. From here, we we move on into the middle groupings, which were all extremely close in terms of average placements. A lot of these combos were decently balanced between the characters, the bodies, and the tires, which is likely why they all place within a small margin of one another. The Inkling Splat Buggy combo was definitely a welcome surprise in its placement at 4th, which definitely wasn't what I initially expected at all from it. The element of surprise continued on into the second best combo, which was the standard bike with Peach. Like I've said, I personally never used the standard bike, so I was pleasantly surprised to see how well it drove. I could immediately feel the similarities between it and the meta combos, which obviously translated into one of the better averages. It wasn't the best though, with that title belonging to the Biddy Buggy combos. Now this one wasn't exactly a surprising outcome, just the fact that it shares its grouping with Mr. Scooty was enough to tell me how solid it was going to be, especially considering how strong its stats were. I did enjoy the fact that there were multiple characters who used this vehicle in the title screens, but for this experiment, I would say Iggy paired with the Biddy Buggy and the standard tires came out as the best title screen combination in the entire game. At the end of the day though, none of this really matters at all. Play who you want to play. The only thing that really matters is whether or not you're having fun and winning. So yeah, feel free to comment below your thoughts on these outcomes. Do I have a massive skill issue with the fucking Badwagon or something? Maybe you were surprised by some combos. Let me know what you guys think. If you did enjoy the video, do please give it a like. If you hated the video, do feel free to dislike it. I wouldn't mind. I would say subscribe, but I'd imagine you'd have to be pretty crazy to subscribe to me. Either way, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one.